Welcome to the Throne podcast. We're glad you're here. This is Dan Santana.
And this is Dakota Kingery.
What's up, dude? How you doing?
Yo, I'm good. I feel good.
Yo. That's your saying.
That's me.
We're going to make a shirt that says yo.
I have a few different sayings. Yo. I always say peace out.
Peace out. Seacrest.
Does he say that?
Sure.
Ryan Seacrest, if you're listening.
Well, no, it's, The Office, how there was the one episode where Michael Scott was like, peace out, Seacrest.
Oh,
He's talking
right.
about Funyuns and getting high.
Yes.
Great start to the podcast there with some Office
Of course.
talk. So, we're so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us today. Please like and subscribe. We're glad you're here. If you're listening, hopefully you've heard our other podcasts. If not, go back, check them out. But like, subscribe, share, please. This is something that we've done because we felt like, we were led to do this,
Straight
right?
up.
And we do feel like what we talk about is not just for us, right? Because again, like we've said before, we realize when we get in connection with people that, man, all of us really do go through similar things.
Yeah.
And so today's topic is kind of going to be about that, about the similarities of what we go through. And we were having a conversation, and we were talking about, the things that we have been waiting on for our life. And waiting is such a interesting word.
Such a universal thing.
Because we all wait.
Yeah. All the time.
All the time. Everything is,
Everyone is waiting.
on something.
Literally
right?
everyone.
And if you leave your house today, you wait on, like you're waiting.
Waiting in traffic.
Yes, you're waiting at a stop sign. You're waiting at a stoplight. There's constant waiting. So we want to talk about that because we're right now, both of us
Yeah.
are in this.
We're waiting.
Yeah, we're in this time period of waiting. But also, we've always been. I remember this. I remember growing up, as we all do, and whenever you get a certain age, you want to be something else, right? So I remember being 10 and I wanted to be 13 because I had a cousin who was 13. I'm like, man, he looks so big and cool. I want to be 13.
13-year-olds.
Right. And then I turned 13 and then another cousin is 16. My brother's older, he's 4 years older. So he's 17, he's driving and all that stuff. And, there's that whole I got to wait to drive and I got to wait to this and I got to wait to that. And our life really is about waiting. But while we're waiting, what are we doing? What are we doing while we're waiting? So, Dakota, let's talk about your story. Your story, if anyone has been on this for longer than a few months, you understand that we kicked off really the To the Throne of 2021 with Dakota's story because it's a powerful story.
Yeah.
And but man, there's a lot of waiting in that story.
So much.
Like you tell an 11, 12 minute story, but it's like that was a year.
So much waiting.
And more, if you will,
my
right?
Gosh, so much more, yeah.
So let's talk about the waiting that you've gone through now, recently, in the past.
I mean, I've waited so much for so long for so many things. I'm waiting for stuff now.
Yeah.
Anyone listening right now, you're waiting on something. You're probably thinking, you probably thought 5 minutes ago, like, oh, I'm waiting on this. I need this to happen. And, some people wait on more heavy things than others, and I've had to wait on some of those things. Again, if you haven't heard my story, it's been a story of waiting and miracles and needing miracles and waiting on miracles. And, it seems like not everyone waits on the same thing. But I love that we can find this universal thing of but everyone waits. And so there's principles in there that can be applied to any situation because the variables change,
Right.
But for me, to walk through, to move to Nashville, I had to wait, I felt like the Lord told me to move to Nashville and I had to wait to find a job. I had to wait for, I didn't have a car. And
Right.
so I had to wait okay, well, how am I getting a car? So I had to wait and figure out that. And, all these things that the waiting has looked like so many different, so there's been so many different seasons of waiting. Right now I'm waiting on other miracles that don't look the same as previous times of waiting have looked. I think the interesting thing about waiting is it always stays the same, but the challenge of waiting, I think, becomes different based on what we're waiting for. So, like, I could be waiting for, for example, like my story, I was waiting to, get a job to move down here. And that looks way different than right now, right? But the variables behind that, like what I needed to do to wait, it tested me in different ways than what waiting is testing me in now.
Right.
So, like, I had to be tested in my patience, my faithfulness, and like my drive to be like, you know what, Lord, you've told me to move here, so I'm like gonna keep submitting in, application. I'm gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna keep driving down here and visiting.
Right.
Try, like get jobs, and like that waiting looks way different, but it tests you in a different way while you wait. So I think like, I don't know, like right now, for example, I'm waiting on. I don't know. I'm waiting on so many things, but it's testing me in a way different way than now.
Right.
And so, like, I think it's so important that when you wait, you understand that it's about what you do when you wait, and I think we know that. It's about what you're practicing while you're waiting. Are you practicing, like, are you waiting, like, I try to think about when I wait on something, am I doing the things now that are worthy of what I'm waiting on? So, like, if I'm waiting on, say, for example, someone's waiting on a house, right? They want to buy a house, or they want to move somewhere, they want to do this. While you're waiting, are you putting in the practices that are worthy of you owning a house?
Right. That's good.
Like, are you putting in the practices of, like, paying the amount, like, of what your mortgage is going to be, and like upkeeping, you're going to have to, if you move from an apartment to a house, is way different, right?
Right.
You have to upkeep, your lawn and all these things, and you're like, the burden of a house and all the things that goes along with it are now on your shoulders, way different than an apartment.
Yes.
So, but are you preparing, and are you waiting in a way that is worthy of, owning that house? And I think I've had to really learn that is, say, like, I want to be a good steward of everything that God's been given, that everything that He's given me.
Right.
And so if I am not preparing, then why, why would God give, why would God give me what I'm waiting for?
Yes.
It just doesn't make sense. And so, I don't know.
Well, I mean, waiting, you're right. Waiting is so universal because we all do it.
Yeah.
But we don't all do the same thing while we wait.
Yeah.
And, ultimately, you're right. It's what we do while we're waiting that really makes the wait matter.
Right.
Right? It makes it important. It makes it have value.
Yeah.
Because we all know this as we're younger. There's a reason why we don't have certain things, because we're not ready for it, because we haven't matured enough for things. And a lot of times we feel, and pride can creep in, and we feel like we're ready for it.
Yeah.
But we just want it now. We're actually impatient, right? But we're not ready for it really, because exactly what you said, we haven't done what we've needed to do, the process to prepare for it.
Yeah.
And in waiting ultimately is preparation.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we need to prepare for the next thing that's coming, for what we're waiting for. And it's in the same way as when it looks different now for multiple reasons, because life is different. But, because of COVID, maybe there's not as many people getting together and whatever. But you know how it is, like back in the day, and that's a very loose statement, because back in the day for some people it's in 1950.
Right.
For some people it's 1980. For some people it's 2015, So back in the day it's kind of loose. But I remember growing up having people over, right? And even now, right? When you invite people over, there's this level of waiting that you're doing for that person to arrive, and that anticipation that comes with it, right?
Yeah.
But are we preparing the place for that person to arrive? Are we preparing things? Are we actually setting the table for what we're waiting for, right? Because a lot of times we'll wait on somebody, but if we don't, it's in the same way if we got invited somewhere and we show up and there's nothing ready, there's nothing prepared.
Yeah.
And so in their lack of waiting, in the sense of being active, now I have to sit there while they're doing things and wait.
Right.
So you realize the things that God has for us are in His timing, and His timing's perfect.
Yeah.
And there's so many little things that we can talk about and mention that, it's because I stepped out and purchased this thing that I could have did a month ago or 2 months ago or 3 months ago. But I stepped out, this opportunity opened up.
Yeah.
Right after I stepped out, and
yeah, that's just how it works.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but those are the little things where I'm like, well, you're waiting for this, but are you stepping out in faith in that waiting?
Well, you know what it is? I think that waiting sometimes can be a what's the term with like an energy? You have like stationary energy or whatever, and it's like, or energy that's moving. Do you know the term? I don't know. I don't remember like the science terms. You know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's like kinetic and...
There you go.
But there's another one. There's like one type of energy that's like stationary and it's dormant. But there's another type of energy that, is moving. And so I think that sometimes we can attribute waiting to lack of action.
That's good.
When it's actually not. A waiting can be a very actionary term. What does a waiter do when you're at a restaurant? You ever see a waiter just standing there and not doing anything? They're bringing you your food. They're serving you.
Right.
Well,
good waiters are.
Good, yeah, right. Good waiters.
The best waiters are, right?
Good waiters.
Right.
So, waiters are doing things. They're waiting on you. They're not waiting on, it's like, they're not waiting on themselves, they're waiting on you. They're watching you.
Right.
They're serving you. They're looking at, and so I think like sometimes people have taken this verse, those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. And it's really like, no, those who serve the Lord.
That's it.
Shall renew their strength, and they shall mount up with wings like it. And it's not like, well, I'm just sitting around waiting, on the Lord to tell me what I'm going to do or give me direction or do this. It's like, no, I'm actively saying, okay, Lord, I'm going to watch you.
Right.
And I'm going to look for the things you need. I'm going to look for the things that you're showing me, because that's what good waiters do. They're never just sitting around. They're bringing you your food.
Right.
They're cleaning up your table. They're like ringing up the check. And so I just think that brings a successful next season in your waiting.
Right.
When you don't wait stationary, but you wait
right.
actionary.
It's
is
the
actionary a word?
No, it's the kinetic energy versus the potential energy.
Yes. Yes. Well, when you're, it's like, and I think the kinetic one is the one that's moving, right?
That's moving, yes. Kinetic is moving. Potential is clearly...
Yes, you have potential energy, and it's like, okay, there's potential there, but you're not doing anything.
That's it.
And you know what has to happen for potential energy to be set in motion? It has to be pushed.
That's it.
It has to be like shoved. There has to be some force that comes in and shakes it up, because that's why it's potential energy. But what happens after it's pushed and shoved is it turns into kinetic energy.
That's it.
And so I think sometimes it's like, we have the potential energy to make movement and make moves
and
actually create, something I love is about humans is we're the only species that actually can create the future.
Yeah.
We've heard people say this before. It's like, we're the only species that actually goes out and can create things that aren't seen.
Right.
We have the ability, because we've been created by Creator. We have the ability to make things out of thin air. We were talking a few minutes ago about like technology and how crazy it is that people can create things that are so small and like. But what I love about that is like we have the ability to create our future, and I think sometimes is we are waiting in potential energy. We have the energy, the potential, keyword potential energy to create our future that we're waiting on. But it's not there because it's potential energy and not kinetic energy.
That's it.
And we're not moving, and we're not waiting while we move. It just...
Well, there has to be an understanding of why you're waiting too. And
Yes.
I think when you put a purpose behind your wait, then the purpose will actually give you a push.
Yes.
And it'll say,
That's
okay,
it.
this is the purpose.
That is
so
it.
then here's the push
Yeah.
to make your waiting kinetic. And I love the server analogy, right? The waiter. It's the waiting for, and it's serving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at serving, ultimately it's about, doing something for others and realizing when you serve, many times when we wait, all we do is think about us. We just look at us and think about us. And there's times when we look at other people and compare to us, right? And it's this very much inward thing that keeps us, that's that potential energy that's just like, because we're so focused in, right? We're not pushing ourselves out. And the way we push ourselves out is actually look outward and serve. And so coming into waiting, let's talk about serving. How do we serve? If you go to a church, cool, you can serve, a church. But if you don't, if you're not plugged into community, how am I going to serve?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Who am I going to serve?
Well, yeah.
It's
Let's
like,
hope you.
well, it's not, you serve yourself or you can serve people,
That's
serving yourself is just selfishness. You
Selfish.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't actually become serving until you serve someone else,
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like you have to put yourself below. And so you have to have people actually around you to serve. But what I love about serving is, like you said, it takes the focus off of you. And, we've heard many stories. We had a friend that we got dinner with recently that started a business. And he said, the second that I stopped thinking and worrying about the money coming is the second that it came.
That's it.
And the second my business actually started to thrive and succeed. And so I think that so many times we're so focused. We actually create idols
Right.
in our waiting. And, what I love about the Bible is, one of the 10 Commandments is, do not create false idols.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, the Bible says that do not serve any other gods before me, right? Do not serve. Don't worship an idol.
Yeah.
But idols are man-made.
Yes.
Idols are not made by God.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we look at our waiting, it's like, what are we waiting on? And are we making what we're waiting on an idol? Because I think if we wait the right way, then what we're waiting on will actually cause us to not focus on ourselves, but focus outwardly, like you said, and serve people.
Yeah.
If we're waiting on the right thing, then it should cause us to serve.
Yes.
If we're waiting on the right thing, then it should cause us to give. If we're waiting on the right thing, then it should cause us to love and, to encourage. But if we're waiting, if we're waiting on something for ourselves, what does it cause us to do? It causes us to look inwardly. And that can cause anxiety. And that can cause depression.
Yes.
And that can cause fear and strife because you're like, well, I got to figure out how to make this happen for me, blah, 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 because you're so focused on me. But what I found, oh, this is so good. This is such a good revelation. What I found is that serving is so much easier. Serving yourself is so much harder than serving other people. Because what I can do for you is actually it's so much easier to do something great for someone else than to make something great happen for me. Because then it's striving.
Yes.
Like the effort to do so, to be generous, the effort to give and encourage. Think about how easy it is to encourage someone.
Yeah.
It's so easy. It takes a few words to encourage someone. And most of us don't know how great it can be and how meaningful it could be to someone who needs an encouragement to get an encouragement.
Yeah.
Think about how simple it is, right? But when you think of, well, I need this, and I need that, I need that, I need this, I need a house, I need a car, I need a job, I need, all these I need things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you're like, I need to make these happen for myself. That's striving.
Right.
And that produces so much toxicity in your soul. And so that's why I love the serving thing. Like, how are we serving? And is what you're waiting on causing you to serve?
Right.
Because it's so easy to give something to someone else.
Right.
it almost costs you nothing. You know, it costs you way less than you think, but it will cost you actually a great deal more to say, I need this. So let me create this because that costs you your peace. You know,
Yeah.
costs you so much. And so
It goes back to the conversation we had on the last podcast about giving something to somebody that you don't have, or
Yes.
praying, you know,
Yes.
it's that whole like, I need this, but
Yeah.
so I'm going to give it.
yeah,
I need it, but I'm going to give it. Many times, I mean, we have breakthrough even financially. Is like when you need something, it's like, no, actually give the thing
Yes,
that you need, because like God sees it and says, because you do that, you're sowing seeds.
yeah,
And I will bless you abundantly because of that, you know? But it's funny how you talk about idols, because a lot of us know the story, 10 Commandments, right? Mm-hmm. Moses goes up to
Yep.
get the 10 Commandments, and he's gone for a long time.
Yeah.
and they're waiting.
Yep.
And what happens while they're waiting?
They create false idols.
They made an idol.
They made an idol.
While he was going to get the 10 Commandments,
Yeah.
that's
The word
one
of the
them
Lord.
That said,
Yeah.
one of them said, don't
Do you know?
create.
That's so good.
Goes back down like,
Yeah.
what the heck, guys? But we do that so often.
Yeah.
And that is a great look at, are we making the things that we're waiting for idols?
Because it's like,
What are we worshiping?
it goes back to, you know, what do you do when you worship an idol? You change the God that you serve, you know? And so now instead of serving the God that can give you everything, you're serving a God that can give nothing. You're serving a God that you made,
Yes.
right? So first of all, how does that work? How do you serve a God? You know, you like sacrifice and you give your life to something that you made, right? Like that just doesn't make any sense. But I think sometimes we place so much importance on some of these things that we wait for. And I'll be the first to admit it, that I have made some of the things that I'm waiting and asking God for an idol.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard this. Everyone's probably heard this before, but we have to be careful that the thing that we're waiting for does not take the place of the person who gives us what we're waiting for.
That's it.
Because the second that happens, it's an idol.
Yep.
You know, and so I'll admit, like I've had that struggle, because there's so many things that I need in my life. There's so many things that I've found lack, or I see lack in, right? And even simple things, right? Sometimes we look at basic things. They're like, God, I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and things that are not out of the question. Like there's things in my life that are not crazy to ask God for.
Right.
They're not like outlandish, or they're not like splurgy. I don't know if splurgy is the word.
Sounds fun.
You know, they're not like crazy. They're simple things, right?
Right.
But you can make anything an idol. And God's word says that He will give you everything that you need
Yes.
according to His riches and His glory.
Yes.
And sometimes we confuse our wants with our needs. And then we start to serve those. And so, I'll be the first to admit it. I've had to pull myself back and be like,
Right. And here's the deal. If you serve the Lord, think about this. If you serve God, right? And one of His 10 Commandments is thou shalt not have any other gods beside me. And we then start praying for something, and we start elevating that thing to the place of now this is higher than anything else in my life, even God Himself, because that's what happens with idols. Idols, you put it above everything else.
yeah,
And that's why God said there needs to be nothing above me, right? And when we do that, in a weird way, we don't pray to the idol that we put above God, which in logically makes sense that we should, because that thing is now the highest thing, right?
Right.
But we still pray to God
yeah.
to make this idol
To give us our idols.
that we put
Yeah.
above Him.
That's
and,
good,
And
yeah.
please give me this thing that I put above
Yes.
you.
That's so crazy.
And God's going to bless us with that? No.
Right.
So then what we have to do is, what do? We have to go out and get on our own, in our own strength. And to be honest with you, when we do that, it's not blessed,
Wow.
because it didn't come from Him.
Yeah.
And I don't want anything that's not blessed. That's one big thing, like I've learned in my life.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to do is carry around something with me that isn't been blessed by Him,
Wow.
because that blessing goes a long way. Why? Because we're blessed to be a blessing.
Yeah.
And if I strive and do it on my own, that's just for me.
Yeah.
It's not for me to be a blessing.
Yeah.
I'm blessing
That's so good.
myself.
That's really good.
But when he blesses us, he does that so that we can then bless others.
Yeah.
So, in our waiting, yes, there's those moments of inward looking and what could I do, whatever. But ultimately, I think trust. And if we're waiting on the right thing, that's a whole nother topic for another podcast. If we're waiting on the right thing, and we believe, okay, this is what I want, this is what I'm called to do. Practical things, like you said. I mean, practical things are literally like my car is falling apart. I need a new car. Whatever it is, right? Some people need new jobs and just things or relationships. So maybe some people are in valleys of relationships and like, I just need good people around me.
Yeah.
What's funny is, again, we serve in church and we understand how serving is important. When you serve people, it's amazing how relationships come with that.
Yeah.
It's just, they happen.
Yes.
The reason I'm sitting across you is because I served in a church and I served there long enough to be able to be on staff as a worship pastor. And you came along and you started serving at the church.
Yeah.
And because you served and because I served, we were sitting across the table in a different state talking about serving.
It's so crazy.
And but that's what happens. When serving happens, relationships happen.
Yeah.
And it's blessed. It's a blessed thing.
Well,
And
yeah, the Bible says that those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. I think let's break it down for a second. Because let's
break it down.
Let's get really simple. Because we're talking a lot about, we serve in church and God and, like we serve no other gods above, our God, blah, blah, blah. But I think if we look at, God is love,
Right.
God is peace, God is joy, all these things. If you just look at those, if putting yourself, it's just a fact that you'll have to experiment on for yourself.
Right.
Those that are listening. And if you don't know it, but it's just a fact that when you serve others, you're refreshed with joy.
Yes.
And everyone needs joy, right? Whether you are a believer or not, everyone needs joy. And when you wait, you have to practice patience.
Right.
And everyone needs patience, whether you're a believer or not. God is peace as well. And when you say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to worry about this thing or that thing that I'm waiting on. I'm not going to say, you know what, I can't be happy until I have this thing. I can't be happy until I have that thing. Because peace is not circumstance.
That's good.
It's not. Peace is a posture of your heart. And everyone needs peace, right? And so anyone who's listening needs those things. Anyone who is listening needs love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness. I keep going. Everyone needs those things, whether you love the Lord or not. And so that's why we are saying things like, we serve the Lord and we're waiting on him and all these things, all these phrases is because God is those things and he is love and he's joy and all these things.
That's
so
it.
I think we just have to look at, how we're waiting. What are we waiting on? You said that. It's such a good thing. It's like, are we waiting on the right thing?
Right.
Because that really determines how you wait, first of all.
It does.
Because it's like, again, we go on this all day, but if you're waiting on something for yourself, it's probably going to create a time of waiting.
Yeah.
That's focused around yourself, right?
And then you get desperate, and then you make it happen for you.
Yeah.
And it's self-serving.
And it's striving.
Yes, and it's striving, and ultimately it's not blessed because it's from you and it's only for you. And so that's it, know. And I mean, are there elements? Yes, there are things that we can't be lazy, right? Like you said, I mean, I love that potential.
Has to be action.
Yes, you still have to be active in our waiting. Our waiting is not passive waiting when we're just sitting around. Yes, so we've said that. And so I think, of course, waiting on the Lord is ultimately trusting.
Yeah.
Trusting that what he has spoken to us or what we desire that he's given us is not just for us.
Yeah.
And so if I don't have it yet, it's because there's a good reason that he hasn't given it to me yet.
Yeah.
That's it, because I wouldn't be able to handle it.
Yeah.
In the same way as going back to the car, driving a car, getting your first car, your license, all that. I know me, I'm a car guy. You're a car guy. We like cars. We like fast cars because we're car guys, and guys like fast cars, right?
Yeah, for some reason.
We just do, whatever. So all of us want some fast sports car for our first car, or some big truck, or it's just something that's crazy that most likely we would do something stupid.
Yeah.
But a lot of people get like a Honda Civic that has like 112 horsepower, right? But it gives you 40 gallons or 40 miles to the gallon.
It's a trade-off.
And right, it's that whole thing. But why? Because we wouldn't be able to really handle the responsibility.
As a first car, I can't imagine driving muscle cars.
So, man, in our life, especially in Instagram world and in just everything that we see now, we want everything now. We want, and man, we can't handle everything.
Yeah.
And that's what's hard with waiting. When you wait, when you start waiting, the more you wait, the more you do it well, the more mature you get in your waiting. And then you start realizing, and we've talked about it, you start realizing, okay, look at all these stories in the Bible, and this person waited 40 years. 40. Have you waited 40 years for anything?
Nope.
No, you're 25. You have not, you know what I'm saying? Like, you've barely waited, okay? But guess what?
Yeah.
I'm not 40. I have not waited 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay? And guess what? Will we ever wait 40 years for anything? Probably not.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't
that's
want to
crazy.
wait 40 years for anything.
But these people, like Moses, waited 40 years for one thing, and then in one season of his life, very Christian word, and then in another season of his life, waited another 40 years.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy stuff. And man, we can't wait 2 days.
Yeah.
We can't wait 1 year.
How
1 month.
ridiculous is that?
Like, we have zero patience for anything.
Yeah.
We need it now. And if we don't have it now, we're just going to be depressed, or we're just going to go try to get it, or give up and say, well, it's not for me because it didn't come.
Yeah.
No, if it's for you, it will come. But what are you doing while you wait?
That's so good.
And every time that I've stepped out in my waiting and said, I'm not okay. We've all gone through it. We're very like, okay, we can easily get inward with our wait. Every time I've stepped out and said, okay, while I'm waiting, while I'm on hold here, all right, I'm going to be doing something.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing something positive. I'm going to be helping somebody. I'm going to grow in some area, so that when that thing comes, I'm going to be a better person.
Yeah.
Right. And funny thing is, the thing won't come until I'm a better person.
That's it.
It's not going to happen.
It's so good because you know what you have to do when you wait? You have to be patient. And so the odds are that you're waiting because you need patience.
Boom.
Simple as that. Or if there's just something else that God is testing you while you wait, you're waiting on something else. It's probably, it's like you're being refined. So you're waiting for a reason. So if you're listening, and because I'm speaking to myself right now, but if you're listening and you're like, well, why don't I have this thing right now? Like we've been saying this whole podcast, it's because God is refining you. And he is building something in you, and you are learning valuable skills to be able to handle what you're waiting on.
Right.
You are learning valuable traits. You're gaining experience. All these things. When you wait on the Lord, you have to be patient. When you wait on the Lord, you have to have an awareness of where he's going, what he's doing, because you're watching him.
Right.
When you wait on, there's all these things that happen when you wait. I would encourage you, look at what is happening while you're waiting. Like, really pay attention and hone in on, okay, what are the things that I'm having to do while I'm waiting? Am I having to learn how to practice joy? Am I having to learn how to practice peace? Am I having to learn patience? Am I having to learn stewardship?
Yeah.
Really focus in on that and ask the Lord, just look at your life and be like, okay, what is it that I'm learning? Because the sooner you lean into that, the quicker the thing is that you're actually waiting for will come.
That's it.
That's just how it works. Because it's, a friend of ours said this before. Some tests are time tests.
Yeah.
But some tests are aptitude tests.
Yeah.
And a time test, you can walk up and get out of the room when you're done with the test. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, but the aptitude test, you only leave the room when you pass the test.
Right.
And so you better study. Basically.
Right.
You better study your life and study, okay, how can I ace this test? How can I ace this season?
Right.
Again, a Christian word. How can I ace this season of waiting?
Right.
It's by studying and leaning into, all right, what do I need to learn?
Yep. And I think as we close this, ultimately waiting is preparation.
Yeah.
And it's preparation for the thing we're waiting on.
Yes.
That's all it is. And if we don't see it that way, right, then it can be such a toxic thing for us if we don't see it as preparation. And so what does that mean? We have to be humble in our waiting. Because if we're not humble and we're like, well, I'm ready, right? It's like, okay, well, if you're ready, it'd be here.
Yeah.
So then if it's not here,
Are you sure you're ready?
right, then there's something. And it could be a little tweak, like you said. Maybe it's just this little tweak of like thing you have to work out and exercise and grow in. Maybe it's joyfulness or thankfulness or even or that serving element, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you do a lot of good things, right? But I mean, you're doing things that are very self-serving as well. And that's one thing where that's pride ultimately when you do something for others, but ultimately there's this other thing that benefits from it. When you truly serve, it gives God glory.
Yeah.
It literally takes glory away from you and gives it to him. And when you do it the other way, it gives you glory.
Yeah.
And ultimately you become that idol.
That's it.
You become the idol that you create. Go ahead.
You know why God gives us crowns?
Why?
Is so that we can give them back to him.
Mm-hmm.
Revelation 4, the 24 elders are sitting in the throne room, and God has given them crowns.
That's it.
But what do they do with them? They cast them down
At his feet.
Mm-hmm. And they say, holy, 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 Lord God Almighty. That's why we're given crowns. And so I would encourage you, give your gifts because it'll make the waiting easier.
That's it.
So as we close this out, one more thing.
Yeah.
One practical tip.
Okay.
One practical tip for people who are waiting.
For me?
Yes, from you. And
All
I'll
right.
give one.
Okay, shoot. Let's do it. One practical, we've talked already about probably every practical tip, basically.
But your practical tip. Dan Santana's practical tip.
Man, in waiting. So what I've learned in waiting is that, again, I have to always make sure that there's a purpose. Like, what am I waiting for? And, because then it gives the why.
Mm-hmm.
So the practical tip is you need to recognize the purpose of your wait. And if again, what you're waiting on, if it's a big purpose, then understand that the wait is measured that way, right? And if it's something that's so small and so whatever, then what is the little thing in my life that is just keeping that small thing from coming, right? Like maybe it's a little step of faith, but purpose is the thing that now defines my wait.
That's it.
And once I have it attached to a real purpose, then if I wait a year or 10,
it's worth it.
It's worth it because the purpose is worth it.
That's good.
Go ahead.
My practical tip, I would say something that helps me is reevaluating every day, regrounding myself every single day, and refocusing, because sometimes I think when we wait, the days can blur together.
Mm-hmm.
They can sort of turn into weeks and years, and you're like, well, I'm just waiting. So reevaluate every day, refocus every day, and like you said, define your waiting, because then it helps you wait.
That's it.
Boom. Closing it out. Thank you guys so much for going to the throne with us. We'll see you next time.
Later.
Peace.